I'm Kevin Behrens, and the title of this lecture is Writing a Bioethics Essay, Getting the Basics Right. Objectives for this lecture are that by the end of the lecture, students should be able to understand how to write an academic essay that is written in defense of a particular thesis or position, how to structure and write an academic essay appropriately, to understand how to write an appropriate introduction and conclusion for an essay, as well as how to argue in defense of a position or thesis. Okay, so now when you're writing an essay, it's important to bear in mind that a philosophical or an argumentative essay is not just a piece of creative writing. It's a piece of academic work. You can't just make it up. It has to follow certain kinds of scholarly conventions. It's meant to demonstrate that firstly, you know most of the important related facts or information related to the question itself, that you can understand and explain the most important theories and concepts as they are applicable in this case, that you are able to choose information that is relevant and ideas that are related to your topic, that you can organize and integrate your ideas, and that your work flows logically, and that there is argumentative coherence from the beginning through the middle and to the end. You also need to be able to demonstrate that you can form an independent judgment and that you can give good reasons for your judgment. And primarily, that is what we are concerned to test. You should write roughly at the level of a second-year university student, assuming fairly average intelligence. In other words, don't make it either too simple or to make it too complicated or academic. So keep the language simple, avoid unnecessary jargon. Using big words doesn't mean that you're intelligent. Badly used big words does show that you are ignorant. Also try to keep sentences short. This is not the 18th century. We no longer write one-page sentences. We try and keep our sentences short and understandable. Also assume that your reader doesn't know the concepts and the terms and the ideas that you have been taught. Remember, this is a test to establish whether or not you understand what you have been taught. So you need to explain these, define these terms and concepts, and the level of detail that you are going to use depends on how central to your argument the term or concept is, and what you need from it to enable you to defend your arguments as you go along. Answering the question. Okay, so I say that the question rules, and what I mean is that everything in the end relates back to the question and exactly and specifically what the question is asking from you. So we always say that you should answer the question, the whole question, and importantly, nothing but the question. So remember, this is an educational exercise. It's designed to test or assess particular knowledge and understanding and skills. That's the purpose of what we are doing. So you need to read your question very carefully and make sure that you understand it, and also make sure that if the question consists of a number of parts, that you answer each of those parts. In general, remember that we're always going to place a very high priority on your argument or on how you defend the point of view that you are taking. That's what we are, in a sense, almost most interested in. Definitions and clarifications of terms should be as short and to the point as possible, and only use the extra detail if it's needed to help to defend your argument. Obviously, there are many different ways in which we can set essay questions, but for the purpose of this essay, we're only focusing on questions of the sort that you'll be set, and that is questions in which you are asked to agree or disagree with a statement. So the structure then is that there is a statement that takes a particular position, and it's followed by, do you agree with the statement, defend, or your answer with good arguments. So the example question we're going to be looking at in this lecture is, physicians should not recommend prenatal testing for severe birth defects, as this might encourage parents to consider abortion. Now you can see immediately that this is a statement. You can also see that it is a statement that takes a particular point of view or position on something. So it's something that you can agree with or disagree with. So what you are required to do here is to take a position regarding the claim or the opinion that is expressed in the statement. And the position that you take is formally called your thesis. Okay? Your thesis then is the position that you are going to defend. So in this case, you could argue that you agree with the statement, or you could argue that you disagree with the statement, or you could be more nuanced and you could say that you partially agree with the statement and partially disagree with it. Remember that what the statement is doing for you is it's doing the work of contextualizing. It narrowly defines, if you like, the specific moral issue that you are going to address. So even though the word abortion comes up in this question, as does the word prenatal testing, it's important to bear in mind that this question is essentially about prenatal testing for severe birth defects. That's very, very specific. And then it somehow or the other also relates to the issue of abortion. And we'll have a look at that in more detail. So this is a question about whether or not physicians should recommend prenatal testing for severe birth defects. That's the main question that you are being asked to address. It is not about prenatal testing for relatively minor birth defects. Okay, so very clearly it is establishing that we're not asking you about minor birth defects. We're asking about testing for very severe birth defects, because of course the ethical issues around those are different. Implicitly, it's also a question about the morality of abortion, because when you read the statement, it is very clear that the statement itself assumes that abortion is morally wrong. The statement says physicians should not recommend prenatal testing for severe birth defects, as this might encourage parents to consider abortion. And there's no point in saying that they shouldn't do that unless you already believe that abortion is wrong. But you must respond to the exact statement. Do you agree that physicians should not recommend prenatal testing for severe birth defects? So it's not enough just to argue that abortion is morally right and wrong, where tests show that severe birth defects are likely. It is also a matter of having to deal with the underlying issue of abortion itself. Also remember that you need to answer direct questions directly. So read my lips, you need to make your answer explicit. The question is, do you agree with the statement? Your answer must be, I agree, I do not agree, I partially agree with the statement. Or you need to express your thesis in such a way that your answer is very clear. I will argue that abortion in these cases is morally justified, and that physicians should therefore recommend prenatal testing where such testing is indicated. Make sure that very clearly up front, early on in the first paragraph, that you say what position you are defending. And remember, your answer can be nuanced. It's not just a simple agree or disagree. So don't make us wait until halfway through your paper before knowing what your answer is. This brings us to the end of part A of this lecture on writing a bioethics essay. Thank you.